In today's episode, Andy asks, how would you see how your returning visitors originally got to the site, not just how they got there when they returned? So this is a good question. It requires a lot of customization to Google Analytics because this is not something that Google Analytics can effectively really track well out of the box. And it requires understanding how Google Analytics measures things. There's a hierarchy of users, sessions, and page views. Page views are the individual pages that somebody browses. A session is the total number of pages that they visit during a contiguous period of time. Out of the box, it's 30 minutes. You have it measures as many things as you do before an inactivity period of 30 minutes. So if you go and browse a bunch of pages, go out and grab a cup of coffee and come back in 15 minutes and keep browsing around, that is still one session, even if you've browsed 20 pages. If you go out and grab a cup of coffee and it takes 31 minutes and you come back, now you are a returning user because you're outside of that 30-minute window. And you can customize that in the admin panel. And then at the highest level is the user, the human being, as best as Google can tell, and all the things that you've done, all the sessions that you've come back to. So in order to answer Andy's question, we have to measure at the user level. So let's go ahead and go into Google Analytics. We're going to go into the acquisition menu. Andy said he cares about where did people come from. So that's the source medium menu. And we're going to start with returning users. And hit apply. And next, we're going to add a secondary dimension. And we're going to use a count of sessions. And we want the count of sessions for these users to be equal to 1, meaning their first session. And now, let's take away all users. Uh-oh. We have returning users equals 0. Why? What happened? Well, remember what I said. Google Analytics measures things occasionally a little bit quirky. Returning users is a segment that is tagged by a user being flagged as a returning user. It literally says type returning user. It has nothing to do with the number of sessions that they have browsed. So what we're going to need to do now is we're going to need to create a returning user segment that specifically counts the sessions. So let's do returning users with greater than 1 sessions. And we're going to do a condition here. We're going to filter. Remember, we're filtering at the user level. We care about the person, not the session. And count of sessions is greater than 1. Hit save. Now you'll notice we come up with exactly the same number of users, 491, right? But now, look what's happening here. The returning user says zeros, but returning our segment, our custom segment, has real data. So let's go ahead and get rid of the default segment because it's clearly not working for us. And here we are. We see in the first session, the first time this user came to the site, where did they come from? They came from Google Organic, Bing, TCO, and so on and so forth. And so this segment, even though you would think it would be identical to the built-in returning users, it is not. This is now everyone who's had more than 1 session filtered down to what's happening in their first session. So this is how you get to that answer. This is one of those arcane little things about Google Analytics. I'm not sure why it does it the way it does, why the designers made that choice to have a flag for a returning user instead of just counting the number of sessions. If I had to guess, it was probably a choice in the early days when servers and computers and chips and stuff were much less powerful than they are today. Because remember, Google Analytics fundamentally is an application that Google acquired in 2005. And it was older. It existed as a company called Urchin prior to that. So the Urchin team, probably in the early days, we're talking like the early 2000s, could be as early as 20 years ago, had much less computing power. And so it may be more memory efficient to store that returning user as a flag rather than just using the session count. But this is one of those hacks that you're going to want to implement in your own Google Analytics account if you care about what did the most loyal users return from versus where did the new audiences come from. In this case, my loyal users, the folks who have come back, have come predominantly from search. Now, the other thing you can do with this, which is nice, is you could take that, instead of being one return visit, maybe make it 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. So you could do something like the people who have come back at least 5 times to the website. Maybe they're very highly qualified. Where did they come from? You could make additional sessions, additional segments to do that comparison. So you could start drilling down into, like, who are the super users, who are the folks who are just hanging out with us all the time. What do they have in common from a source medium perspective? So really powerful stuff that you can do with this. And this is, by the way, is only in a 1 week time frame. You could extend this out, and you should extend this analysis out much longer. I would say at least 60 days, if not more, so that you get a much better perspective on where do all these users come from. Here we see, organic search. Let's swap this to bar graph just to make it a little more visually impactful. Yep, 70%, almost 70% of my returning users are coming from organic search. So that tells me, from a marketing strategy perspective, they're coming back for more stuff. So maybe it's favoritism in the algorithm. Maybe they remember to search for my site, but definitely one of those things where there's a lot of to be happening there. And interesting, social media. Number 5 is the first social media source. So the audience that I have from social media is not especially loyal. So that's something to consider too, is maybe need to change strategies there. But great question, Andy. Probably more complicated than you were expecting it to be, again, because of those quirks in the application. But implement this, follow this set of procedures, and you'll be well on your way to being able to make those determinations. As always, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. I'll talk to you soon. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.